The day my mother became my patient was the day my hands started shaking. I had treated hundreds of people before. Old people, young people, rich people, poor people. But when I looked at the name on the hospital file, my heart stopped. Patient name, Maria Santos, my mother. For a moment, I could not breathe. I stared at the paper again and again, hoping it was a mistake, but it was not. The nurse looked at me and said softly, "Doctor, the patient in room 207 is waiting." Room 207. I slowly walked down the long white hallway. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the silence. My mind was full of memories, painful memories. Because the truth was, my mother and I had not spoken in 8 years. And now she was lying in my hospital bed, waiting for me. Her son. Her doctor. My name is Bruce. I am 32 years old now, and I work as a doctor in a city hospital. Many people respect me, some even call me successful. But my life did not start like this. My childhood was not warm or loving. In fact, I often felt like a stranger in my own home. I grew up in a small town with my mother and my younger sister, Lily. My father died when I was 9 years old. After that, everything changed. My mother became cold, very cold. She worked long hours at a small shop in town. When she came home, she was always tired and angry. But strangely, she was only angry with me. Not with Lily. Never with Lily. Lily was the golden child. She was beautiful. She had long hair and a bright smile. My mother always bought her new clothes, new toys, and sweet desserts. But when it came to me, things were different. I still remember one night very clearly. I was about 12 years old. I sat at the dinner table doing my homework while my mother cooked in the kitchen. "Mom," I said carefully, "my school is having a science competition next week." She did not look at me. "So I want to join, but I need some materials. The teacher said we need about $20. She stopped cooking and turned around slowly. $20, she said with a sharp voice. I nodded. She laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "Bruce, do you think money grows on trees?" she asked. I just thought. Before I could finish, she interrupted me. "You always want something, always asking, always complaining." I felt my face become hot. "I'm not complaining," I said quietly. She slammed a plate on the table. "You don't need competitions. You need to study quietly and stop wasting my money." Then she looked toward the living room. "Lily," she called. My sister ran in happily. "Yes, Mom." My mother smiled warmly. A smile I almost never saw. "Tomorrow we'll go to the mall. You need a new dress for your school party." Lily clapped her hands with excitement. And I sat there in silence, holding my science paper. That night I cried quietly in my room. Not because of the competition, but because I understood something very painful. My mother loved Lily, but she did not love me the same way. Maybe she did not love me at all. As the years passed, the difference became bigger. Lily got everything she wanted. If she wanted a new phone, she got it. If she wanted expensive makeup, she got it. But when I needed school books, my mother would say the same words. "Use the old ones, borrow from friends, don't waste money." So I started working small jobs after school. I delivered newspapers. I cleaned tables in a small cafe. Sometimes I helped an old man fix bicycles. I saved every dollar. Not for fun. For school. One evening, when I was 16, something important happened. My biology teacher, Mr. Carter, called me after class. "Bruce," he said, smiling, "your exam score is the highest in the school." I was surprised. "Really?" He nodded. "You have a talent for science. Have you ever thought about becoming a doctor?" A doctor? No one had ever asked me that before. I laughed nervously. "Doctor, that's impossible." "Why?" he asked. "Medical school is very expensive," I said. Mr. Carter looked at me seriously. "There are scholarships for students like you." That night I could not sleep. For the first time in my life, I imagined a different future. A future where I was not the ignored son, not the unwanted child, but someone important, someone who could help people, someone who mattered. But when I told my mother about my dream, everything exploded. We were sitting at the dinner table again. "I want to become a doctor," I said carefully. My mother froze. Then she slowly put down her spoon. "A doctor," she repeated. "Yes, my teacher says I can apply for scholarships." She stared at me like I had said something stupid. "Bruce," she said coldly, "stop dreaming." I felt my chest tighten. "I'm serious, Mom." She shook her head. "You should get a simple job after high school. We need money in this house. But if I become a doctor, I can help." She slammed her hand on the table. "No." Lily looked up in surprise. "You are not wasting years in school," my mother said angrily. "We cannot afford that." "But the scholarship," I said. "No." Her voice was loud now. Then she said something I will never forget. "If someone should go to college, it should be Lily. She has a real future." The room became silent. Lily looked uncomfortable, but she said nothing. And I felt something inside my heart break. That night, I sat outside the house alone. The sky was dark. The wind was cold. And I made a decision. If my mother would not believe in me, then I would believe in myself. No matter how hard it was. No matter how long it took. I would become a doctor. Even if it meant leaving my family behind. But I did not know that one day, the same mother who refused to support my dream would lie in my hospital bed, helpless, sick, and completely in my hands. And when that day finally came, I would discover a truth about my family that would break my heart in a way I never expected. After that night, everything in my life changed. I stopped asking my mother for help. I stopped telling her about my dreams. Instead, I worked harder than ever. During the day, I studied at school. At night, I worked small jobs around town. Sometimes, I slept only 4 or 5 hours. But strangely, the harder I worked, the more invisible I became at home. My mother never asked how school was going. She never asked why I came home so late. It was like I did not exist. One evening, I came home after working at the cafe. My clothes smelled like coffee and soap. My hands were tired. Inside the living room, my mother and Lily were laughing together. The TV was on, and shopping bags were on the floor. "Hi," I said quietly. Neither of them looked at me. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. There was almost nothing inside. Just some cold rice and a small bowl of vegetables. Meanwhile, Lily's shopping bags were full. I picked up one of them. Inside was a beautiful pair of shoes. Very expensive. My mother walked in and saw me holding the bag. "Don't touch Lily's things," she said sharply. "I was just looking," I replied. "They're not for you." Her words were simple, but they felt like a knife. The next year was my final year of high school. It was the most important year of my life. If I wanted a scholarship for medical school, my grades had to be perfect. Every day I studied for hours. But at home, things became worse. My mother began asking me for money. At first, it was small amounts. "Bruce, give me $20. I need to pay a bill." "Bruce, lend me some money. I'll return it later." But she never returned it. And later, I noticed something strange. She always had money for Lily. New dresses, new phone, new makeup. One day, I finally asked her, "Mom, why do you keep asking me for money?" She looked annoyed. "You live in this house, don't you?" "Yes, but I already pay for my school things." And she said, "You should help the family." I felt my chest tighten again. "I am helping the family," I said quietly. "I work every night." She crossed her arms. "Well, work harder." Then she walked away. Despite everything, I kept studying because I knew this was my only chance to escape. One afternoon, a letter arrived at our house. It had the logo of a big university. My hands trembled when I opened it. My eyes moved quickly across the words. Then I stopped breathing. I got the scholarship. Full tuition. Housing. Everything. I read the letter again and again. I could not believe it. After years of struggle, my dream was finally real. I ran into the living room. "Mom," I said excitedly. She was sitting on the couch with Lily. "What is it?" she asked, sounding annoyed. "I got the scholarship," I said, holding the letter. She looked at it. Then she looked at me. But there was no pride in her eyes. No happiness. Just silence. "So," she said, "I can go to medical school." She sighed. "That means you're leaving the house." "Yes, but it's a great opportunity." Before she could answer, Lily suddenly spoke. "That university is in the city, right?" "Yes," I said. She turned to our mother. "That's the same city where the fashion college is." My mother's eyes lit up immediately. "Really?" Lily nodded. "I've always wanted to study there." I watched their conversation, confused. My mother grabbed the letter from my hands and read it again. Then she looked at me with a strange expression. "Bruce," she said slowly, "if you go to that city, you should help Lily too." "What do you mean?" "You can share your apartment with her." "I don't have an apartment," I said. "The scholarship gives me a dorm room." "Then find a bigger place," she replied. I stared at her. "Mom, I'll barely have enough money for myself." She frowned. "Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word hurt more than I expected. "I worked for this scholarship for years," I said quietly. "Yes," she said coldly, "and now it's time to help your sister." That night, Lily knocked on my bedroom door. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Sure." She sat on the edge of my bed. "Look," she said softly, "Mom really wants me to go to that fashion college." "That's great," I replied. "But the tuition is very expensive." I nodded slowly. "So I was thinking." My stomach tightened. "You could help pay for it." I stared at her in disbelief. "Help pay for your college?" "Yes. Lily, I'm a scholarship student. I don't have extra money." She looked disappointed. "But you'll become a doctor someday," she said. "Doctors earn a lot." "That's years from now." She crossed her arms. "You always think about yourself." I could not believe what I was hearing. "I worked for years just to go to school," I said. "And we are your family," she replied. Her voice was no longer soft. It was cold, almost like our mother. A few weeks later, the biggest fight in our family finally happened. It started at dinner. My mother looked at me seriously. "I spoke with Lily's college," she said. I looked up. "They have a special program," she continued, "but we need to pay the first semester soon." "That's good," I said. Then she said the words that changed everything. "You will give Lily your scholarship money." The room became completely silent. I felt like the air disappeared. "What?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said. "My scholarship is for medical school." "You can work instead," she replied. I stared at her, shocked. "You want me to give up my dream for Lily?" "She needs it more," my mother said. Lily said nothing. She just looked down at the table. My hands were shaking now. "I worked for this for years," I said slowly. "And I raised you for 18 years, my mother replied coldly, "so now you repay me." At that moment, something inside me broke. I stood up from the table. "No," I said. My mother's eyes became sharp. "What did you say?" I said no. My voice was stronger now. "I will not give up my future." The anger in her face grew quickly. "You ungrateful child," she shouted. "I'm not ungrateful," I said. "I'm just choosing my life." Then she said something that still echoes in my mind. "If you walk out that door for medical school, don't come back." The words hit me like a storm. I looked at Lily, but she still said nothing. Not a single word to defend me. Not a single word to stop our mother. And in that moment, I realized something painful about this family. I was completely alone. So I packed my bags and left the house that same night. I thought that would be the hardest moment of my life. But I was wrong. Because 8 years later, when I walked toward room 207 in the hospital, I would learn that my mother had done something far worse than I ever imagined. 8 years passed like a long, heavy silence. In those years, I never went back home. I became a medical student in the city, just like I dreamed. At first, life was very hard. I worked part-time jobs while studying day and night. Many times, I felt like giving up. But I remembered my mother's words. "If you leave, don't come back." So I didn't. I built a new life without her. Slowly, I became a doctor. A real doctor. People started calling me Dr. Bruce. But inside, I was still the same boy who once sat at a dinner table feeling unwanted. Then one morning, everything changed. I was in the emergency department when the hospital phone rang urgently. "Dr. Bruce," the nurse said, We have a critical patient coming in, severe heart failure. She is being transferred to your unit. Name, I asked while checking the files. There was a short silence. Then the nurse answered. Maria Santos. My pen stopped moving. My heart stopped for a second too. I did not speak. I just stood there. Because I knew that name. I knew it too well. My mother. That is how I ended up walking toward room 207. Each step felt heavier than the last. My mind was full of questions. Why now? Why here? Why me? When I reached the door, I stopped for a moment. I took a deep breath. Then I pushed it open. And I saw her. She was lying in the hospital bed, connected to machines. Her face was pale. Her hair was thinner than I remembered. She looked small, weak, not like the strong woman who once shouted at me. Not like the woman who told me to leave forever. For a moment, I just stood there without moving. Then her eyes slowly opened. She looked at me. At first, she did not recognize me. Then her eyes widened slightly. Bruce, she whispered. My name sounded strange in her voice. I did not answer right away. I just looked at her chart. Her condition was serious. Very serious. But I kept my face calm because I was her doctor now. At least that's what I told myself. Doctor, the nurse said softly behind me, she needs immediate care. I nodded. Yes, I said quietly, I will handle it. I stepped closer to the bed. Mrs. Santos, I said in a professional voice, can you hear me? She blinked slowly. Yes. I checked her vital signs. Her heart rate was unstable. Her breathing was weak. Everything was critical. I gave instructions to the team. Prepare oxygen support. Start IV medication immediately. The nurses moved quickly. But I could feel her eyes on me the entire time. Watching me quietly. After the treatment started, the room became calmer. Machines beeped softly. The nurses left for a moment. And suddenly, it was just the two of us. Doctor and patient. Mother and son. But we did not say it. Not yet. She spoke first. You became a doctor, she said weakly. Yes, I replied. Her eyes moved slowly. You really did it. There was a long silence. I checked her monitor again, avoiding her gaze. Then she said something I did not expect. I saw your graduation picture, she whispered. My hands stopped for a moment. Then I continued working. I kept it, she said. I did not respond because I did not know how. She swallowed hard. I was wrong, she added softly. The room became still. Even the machines felt louder. I finally looked at her. Her eyes were wet, but I did not know if they were tears of regret or fear. You were wrong, I repeated. My voice was quiet but sharp. She nodded slowly. I didn't understand you back then. I laughed once. A short, broken sound. You told me to leave forever, I said. Her lips trembled. I was angry. That's not anger, I said. That was rejection. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked weaker. I needed help, she whispered. My chest tightened. Help, I repeated. She nodded slightly. After you left, things became difficult. I stayed silent. She continued. Lily left too. That hit me harder than I expected. She went to the city, but she stopped sending money after a few years. I felt something cold inside me. So I said slowly, "You ended up alone." She nodded. "Yes." A long silence followed. Then she said something that broke my control. "I sold the house." I froze. "The house?" I asked. She nodded again. "Medical bills, I had no choice." My hands slowly tightened. That house was everything we had. It was where I grew up. Where I cried alone. Where I was told I did not matter. And now it was gone. I stepped back slightly. I felt my emotions rising, but I kept my voice calm. "Do you know what you did to me?" I asked. She looked at me. Quiet, waiting. "I spent my whole life trying to prove I was not useless," I said. "My own mother made me feel like I didn't belong in my own home." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "No," I said sharply, "you don't know." My voice shook now. "You didn't see me crying at night. You didn't see me working 2 jobs just to survive. You didn't see me sleeping in a small dorm room, wondering why I was never enough for you." She started crying silently. But I did not stop. Because something inside me had been locked for years. And it was finally breaking open. "I became a doctor," I said, my voice low, "but not because you supported me." I stepped closer. "I became a doctor because you didn't." The room felt heavy. My hands were shaking now. "I needed to survive you." She covered her face with her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered again and again. But those words did not reach me. Not fully. Not anymore. Because the pain inside me was too deep. Too old. Too long ignored. I turned away from her bed. For the first time in 8 years, I did not feel like her son. I felt like a stranger standing in front of a woman who once destroyed my world. And I did not know what would hurt more next. Her truth, or my decision in the final part. I stood near the hospital window for a long time. Outside, the city was moving like nothing had happened. Cars were running. People were walking. Life was normal. But inside me, nothing was normal. Behind me, I could hear the soft beeping of the machine in room 207. My mother was still alive. Still breathing. Still waiting. I did not turn around at first because I did not know what I would feel if I looked at her again. Anger. Pain. Or something worse. Sadness. After a few minutes, the head doctor entered the room. "Her condition is stable for now," he said, "but she needs long-term care. Surgery is possible, but very risky." I nodded slowly. "Understood." He looked at me carefully. "Dr. Bruce, she is your family, right?" I paused. Then I said quietly, "She is my patient." The doctor did not ask more. He left the room, and silence came back again. I finally turned around. She was still lying there, tired and weak, but awake. Her eyes followed me carefully. "Bruce," she whispered. I walked closer, but I did not sit. I stayed standing, keeping distance. Professional. Safe. "What do you want me to do?" I asked calmly. She looked confused. I don't understand." "I am your doctor," I said, "not your son here." Her lips trembled. "I don't want that," she said softly. I did not respond, because that was not my decision to make. Not anymore. A long silence filled the room. Then she spoke again. "Before I die, I want to fix things." Her voice was weak but honest. I looked at her closely. "Fix what?" I asked. "Us," she said. That word hit me harder than I expected. Us. There was no us for a long time. Maybe there never was. I pulled a chair and finally sat down, but not too close. I needed space. "I have something to tell you," she said slowly. I did not reply. She continued. "It was not only Lily who left." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them again. "She came back once," she said. My heart slowed. "When?" I asked. 2 years after you left." I stayed quiet. "She was struggling," my mother said. "She asked for help." I listened carefully. "She asked me to call you." My fingers tightened slightly. But I refused. The room became colder. "I told her you were too busy, that you didn't want us anymore." I stared at her. "Why would you say that?" I asked quietly. Tears rolled down her face. "Because I was proud," she said. "And stupid." Silence. Heavy silence. Then she said the final truth. "The truth is, I was always afraid of losing control." I frowned. She continued. "Your father died, and I felt like I had no power over anything anymore. I took it out on you." Her voice broke. "You were the only one I could control." My chest tightened painfully. "So I became harsh," she said, "cold, unfair." She looked at me directly. "But you were never the problem." A long silence followed. I did not speak because my mind was full. Too full. I stood up slowly. "Do you know what the hardest part was?" I asked. She shook her head. "I didn't need perfect parents," I said. "I just needed someone who believed I existed." Her tears fell faster now. "I see that now," she whispered. "But it's too late," I said quietly. Her body shook slightly. "I know." Another long silence. I looked at her monitor. Her condition was still unstable. She needed surgery. Without it, she would not survive long. The hospital door opened again. The nurse entered with files. "Doctor, we need your decision." I looked at my mother, then at the file, then back at her. She was watching me carefully. Not as a doctor, not as a patient, but as a mother waiting for her son's answer. My hands stayed still. My mind went back to everything. The empty dinners, the cold words, the nights I cried alone, the dream I built without her support, the life I created without her love. And now she needed me. Only me. I closed the file slowly. "I will perform the surgery," I said. The nurse nodded quickly and left. My mother's eyes widened slightly. "Bruce," she whispered. I stood up. "I am doing this as your doctor," I said firmly. Not as forgiveness, not as forgetting, but as responsibility. The surgery took hours. I worked with full focus. Every movement was careful. Every second mattered. Outside the operating room, I could feel my past waiting. But inside the room, I was only a doctor. Nothing else. Finally, the monitor stabilized. The surgery was successful. A quiet relief filled the room. The team stepped back slowly. "Good job, doctor," someone said. But I did not smile. I just looked at her. Alive. Breathing. Still here. Later, I walked into her recovery room. She was awake. Weak but stable. When she saw me, she tried to speak. But I raised my hand slightly. "Rest," I said. She nodded slowly. Tears were still in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said something I never thought I would say. "You don't need to thank me." She looked confused. "Why?" she asked softly. My voice was calm when I answered. "Because I forgave you a long time ago." Her eyes widened. Tears fell faster now. "But that doesn't mean I forgot," I added. She nodded slowly, understanding. I turned to leave. "Bruce," she called weakly. I stopped at the door. "Yes, I was a bad mother," she said. I did not turn back. I stayed facing the door. Then I said the final truth. "You were not a perfect mother," I said quietly. "But I still became a doctor because of you." She did not understand. So I explained one last time. "Because of your rejection, I learned to build my own life." A pause. "Because of your coldness, I learned how to be strong." Another pause. "And because of your silence, I learned how to hear people who are suffering." I finally looked back at her. "Even you." Then I left the room. For the first time in years, I felt something I did not expect. Not anger, not sadness, but peace. Outside the hospital, the wind was soft. The city was still moving. But I was different now. I was no longer the boy waiting for love that never came. And I was no longer the doctor carrying only pain. I was both. And I had finally learned this truth. Some wounds never fully disappear. But they can become the reason you grow stronger. I looked back at the hospital one last time. Then I walked forward. Not away from my past, but beyond it.